Many cars just continue to sit on the lot and simply don't sell. People have elected to avoid them. You personally couldn't give me one of these for free. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
Before we dive into this, I want to share the fact that our friends at Car and Driver, as well as Black Book, have compiled a list of some of the worst selling vehicles and the number of days it actually takes to sell these vehicles to move them off the lot. There's a variety of reasons, even some with incentives will not sell. But here we have the first choice is a Volvo XC90, and this is one of their more premium SUVs. A lot of people love them for the styling. Volvo's come a long ways in over a lot of their detailing. I mean, you got two-tone chrome handles and chrome detailing here, beautiful laser cut alloys, but look at the headlights, LED strips, and you get the Volvo front grille. These vehicles had a long-standing reputation for reliability, but reliability and durability necessarily aren't going to fly in the latest models, because a lot of people complain about air ride suspension in these vehicles. Could cost you $2,000 to $4,000, depends if you've got airbags or you've got some compressor issue. Under the hood, there's also issues with oil consumption in some cases, but even the transmission, which people know are an expensive proposition, juddering, bucking, jerking, and that could cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 to rectify. Electronics seem to be an issue, as well as brake systems, and a lot of these suspension components seem to be a little bit fragile, and many customers and owners have complained and commented on some of those issues. Now, while it's a beautiful vehicle and it's another nice alternative, I personally would even drive one of these for a while. Just be careful, because when you're looking at these premium luxury vehicles with high levels of technology, turbocharging, supercharging, all wrapped up into one package, things can go wrong and they can get expensive very quickly. That's why these vehicles here are taking an average of 108 days to sell. That's right, you're almost moving on to 4 months to get this vehicle sold off the lot. And here's the next one, is an Audi. Now this one's an A3, but we're actually talking about slightly bigger brother, the A4. This essentially looks almost the same, except this is about 90% of the size. A lot of the features are the same, drivetrains and gearboxes, very similar. Of course, Audi with the traditional grille, a lot of people love it. And of course, naturally, the Quattro all-wheel drive system means between Audi as well as Subaru, they've got some of the best all-wheel drive systems available. I mean, you do step into an Haldex system if you get into the RS models, but the general Quattro system works very, very well. You get beautiful LEDs in the Quattros. Of course, the 4 rings of despair, and as I mentioned, this is the A3, but they're largely the same. And as you look around, simple handles, simple mirrors, but you do get a sliding glass roof in a lot of the cars. And the A4 is one of those nice break-in entry points, of course, for the luxury sedans. And the A4 is a great car in the sense of, if you get in and out before the warranty's up, it's an awesome car. Great performance, great traction, great amenities, and probably the best MMI system, or the interface in the center of the screen, that you'd find anywhere in the industry. Of course, they're a great looking car, if not slightly conservative, but they're a wonderful vehicle to drive around in. Some of the base model engines, the 2-liter, the EA888, some people say they've had nothing but great success. The latest and greatest of the EA888 4-cylinder turbo engine happens to be a little better. There have been a lot of complaints throughout the years of a derivative of that engine, and the A4 has a reputation of expensive maintenance costs, water pumps, timing chains, engines that burn excessive amounts of oil, 600 to 800 miles to a quart of oil, gearbox issues, but more importantly, electrics and electrical gremlins that you could find throughout, whether it's sunroofs, whether it's electrical systems, and just the overall cost of maintenance means a lot of people are looking these days for something a little bit more affordable. So instead of stepping into maybe a base A4, some people now are looking at the Hondas and Toyotas again, because those now have some of the luxury appointments that the base trim entry point of some of these luxury vehicles are. Now the A4, beautiful car, but again, it's going to come with some maintenance repair concerns, and they're not cheap to run. And because they're losing in popularity, the Audi A4 now takes about 118 days to actually sell in its entirety. So by the time this vehicle lands off the truck to the time it's out the door, it could be almost 4 months to get this vehicle sold. Here's one that makes the radar that's not selling very well. I mean, if you look at this, you wonder, well, the Genesis is an attractive looking package. The GV70 is the model we're talking about here, and you do get all-wheel drive. You get a turbocharged engine. Look, all kinds of great detailing all along. You get this beautiful chrome detailing, almost looks like a Mercedes tail finish on there. Piano detailing all the way along. What's interesting is you've got the large glass on top, an absolutely stunning interior with beautiful quilted stitching and a widescreen that goes almost side to side. Of course, look at the beautiful finishing and all that extra black chrome on there. And of course, nice black alloy wheels here. But look at the headlights. That's a very unique design. And of course, Genesis is an upscale brand of Hyundai right there. But this here brand is definitely trying to take everybody by storm. It looks great. People often asking me questions, Mark, should I buy a Genesis? I personally think that looks like a Bentley logo there, doesn't it? But there you have this beautiful black chrome. But see, that's the thing. There have been some troubles along the way. And as a result, because of the affiliation with Hyundai and some of the problems that they've had, for example, like oil burning technology that they've now almost patented, in my own personal opinion, transmissions that have occasionally identified with rough shifting, some of this black chrome trim that you're seeing in certain areas are starting to wear, and you get this weird miscoloring on that. Of course, some electrical gremlins and the infotainment system, like a lot of vehicles these days with high levels of tech and trim and detailing, that it does come with a few problems. Now, it's not gloriously unreliable. They are vehicles that are fun, and they're no worse or no better than some of the other brands. Quite often when I look at these, I start to think the competition isn't with Lexus. The competition is more like Lincoln and Cadillac in terms of the quality. You're getting that level of quality, that level of fit and finish, and quite often they do look wonderful, but it's just ultimately comes down to the price. They say they're good for bang for buck, but there have been a few issues. And again, as I've said, even though it's a Genesis, it still has that strong affiliation and affinity with brands like Hyundai. And of course, because of that and oil burning, it just can't quite shake it. These vehicles are taking about 106 to 107 days to sell. And so it means that you're about 3.5 months out from the time it lands from the truck to the time it goes out to the customer's hands. Now, they're not the worst seller, but they certainly are on the list of some of the worst selling because nobody really wants these. Right here's the next one on the line. And these are beautiful, luxurious luxury cars. Of course, they also are the entry point for Mercedes-Benz. Now, this is a C300, but this is the upscale brother of the vehicle I'm talking about. This actually gives you predominantly rear-wheel drive with 4MATIC, giving you extra torque to the front. This has a 2-liter turbo engine with 240 horsepower, but there's a lower scale version of this car, more of an entry point, and it's predominantly a front-wheel drive instead of this rear-wheel drive configuration, and it's not one of the greatest sellers. And that model is the CLA. This is the C-Class. The CLA is the lower version, smaller. The engine runs left to right instead of front to back. It has a different gearbox. Now, the CLA has about 200 horsepower. It's slightly detuned, doesn't have quite as much giddy up and go as the C-Class, but they're fun, they're frivolous. And I've often said it's probably one of the best entry points for Mercedes-Benz just because it's a simpler car. There's less to go wrong. You know, you don't have air ride, you don't have all of the fancy electronics that more premium E and S-Class cars. When things break, you're still paying the same shop rate, the hourly rate at the dealership to fix that car, whether you're driving a CLA, a C-Class, E-Class, S-Class, or maybe even the Maybach. Ultimately, the CLA is one of those vehicles that nobody's buying, or very few are buying, and they're sitting a long time. And there was a time when they represented a phenomenal deal. You could go out and buy a brand new Camry or a base CLA. And then it was a very easy decision. If you like luxury touches, you'd go with the CLA. Even though you knew maybe there was a bit of a compromise on reliability, you said, you know what, I want luxury car. And you would go buy one. But lately, since about 2020 and 2021, we've seen prices go through the roof. And even I've seen cars that used to sticker for around 40 grand now go up to about $75,000 in the Canadian market. CLAs have gone through the roof, so has C-Classes, and once were very affordable cars and entry points to the brand are now getting astronomically expensive. And that's a big reason why the C-Class, and in this case we're talking about the CLA, is actually not selling very well. You can't give them away for the price that they're asking, and as a result, there's about a 109-day delay on the sales of a brand new CLA. Here's another one that's not selling all that well, and it's another Volvo. But this particular unit is their entry-level SUV, and unfortunately, it's just not selling. And which is kind of peculiar because the only issues that you really find of are, you know, excessive brake wear and tire wear. They tend to eat up through tires and brakes a little faster than most. And the other issue is they say sometimes the engine sounds a wee bit noisy. There's just has something to do with the design of that engine. Does tend to get a little rattly, but other than the engine noise and other than a little bit of the excessive tire and brake wear, the vehicle is actually relatively satisfying to drive. And a lot of people I've spoken to said they've loved the time that they've owned their XC40. The XC40 is absolutely a gorgeous little unit. I love the way it looks. This one's the B5 all-wheel drive. Now, a big reason why they're probably not selling all that well comes down to price. Base trim, core trim, you're dealing with about $41,000 US. Step it up one layer, you're all of a sudden into $51,000 $100,000 US. Now you look at the size of this vehicle and you realize very quickly they've got some strong competition. You know, BMW's got the X3, that's a hot to trot. You know, Audi's got the Q3, Q5, and a lot of great competition. Mercedes has their list of vehicles too. And if you want something luxurious, a lot of people just gravitate to the luxury brands. Unfortunately, Volvo, even as good as it is, most people will recognize that it's pretty much a luxury brand. The fact remains is a lot of people who drive luxury simply want the clout. So they're gonna buy those brands that carry the clout. It's no different than buying a Ferrari versus a McLaren. Most people are gonna buy the Ferrari because it carries the brand, whereas a McLaren might actually be a faster car. In this case, this delivers on many, many fronts. It's a great car, great SUV, fun to drive. I personally love the style of it, but at about 107 days to sell each particular unit, these last about 3.5 months. You don't want to be more than 1 or 2 months. You know, 30 to 60 days is the target that a lot of these OEMs want to move their products. So if you're outside of that target, then you're a slow seller. These are slow sellers. The next one on the list is not this one. This is the Chevy Cruze, which is the small baby brother to the car that we're talking about, which is the Chevy Malibu. Now the Chevy Malibu is a 4-door car by Chevy. They pretty much discontinued it this year, largely because Chevy's transitioning to more of electrified hybrid systems, as well as some of their trucks and SUVs seem to be garnering more popularity. But a lot of the cars that Chevy has had pretty much went away, the Malibu being the latest. Of course, Chevy, they do rust from time to time. The Cruzes have had engine issues, as have the transmissions, but coincidentally the Chevy Malibus have been relatively reliable. Now there's been a few complaints over time with transmissions with the Malibus, with engine issues, more fitment problems, but overall they're actually more boring because they're just that easy to use. They're not that unreliable. They're fairly dependable, tried and true vehicle. You see them everywhere at rental car companies just because you can pack the miles on and it doesn't really hurt the value because they depreciate anyhow. But largely people are avoiding buying the Chevy Malibu largely because it's simplicity. It's a little old school. It's just not innovative enough. It's too much of the same of the old thing. And you know, when people are looking now for hybrid drivetrains, more performance, better features, the Malibu is still sort of left in history and people are just getting bored of it. Chevy also sort of dangle it out there and let it hang out to dry, but ultimately the Malibu's not selling. With about 116 days to sell one car means that nobody's really buying them. And that's one of the reasons why Chevy stopped producing the Chevy Malibu. If you're liking the video so far, you're gonna love the rest of the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and don't forget the notifications bell so you know when the next amazing videos come. Another vehicle that seems to miss the mark and a lot of buyers are not buying right now. It takes about 112 days, according to Black Book as well as Car and Driver, to get one of these sold, and we're looking at an Audi, but this is a premium Audi SUV. Now what we're dealing with here is about 500 horsepower V8 engine, puts down a lot of great performance, but you know what, has great detailing. You get the big red calipers, you get the big beautiful LEDs and the bold grille on this SQ7 by Audi. You see right here, it's a glorious looking vehicle, actually has a phenomenal ride, and a lot of that comes compliments of the air ride suspension, but unfortunately the air ride can let go. That's a common issue, just like many other vehicles that carry the air ride. They're beautiful when they're working, but put some miles on them and next thing you know, these 21-inch wheels get expensive, the big brakes get expensive, and the air ride can cost you $2,000 to $5,000 to rectify some of the issues. You also have turbocharger failures, the odd coolant leak, and people are talking about the HMI or MMI system, which gives you the controls and all of that dialogue and control and features in the vehicle, from your navigation to all the individual controls that you do through the center of the screen, and those seem to be somewhat problematic. So there's no shortage of challenges, issues. Now, while they're not grossly unreliable, they have very expensive repairs. The outright cost of these vehicles is pretty substantial, and a lot of people are just deciding to buy something a little bit more affordable. And these vehicles, as you graze up into over that 6-figure mark, that really does reduce the amount of buyers potentially for that vehicle. The next vehicle that's going to take a long time to sell on the car lot is this little rig right here, and we have a Range Rover Velar. That's right, they look great. They're lower, they're sleeker, they look like a sport but more sleek and streamlined, and of course they have the great Range Rover grille, Land Rover product, beautiful LED lights. This one's been sitting for a while. I'm not even gonna fib. Look at the rusty brake calipers and discs. Now that being said, that's not a harmful thing, but it's just a sign that this vehicle hasn't been moving around. Now this is one of the weak points. This is why. Reputation. Look at his door handle's not even flush. It's sucked in there too far, and this door handle's out all the way. That's one of the issues, that they are known to freeze up in the wintertime and then you can't get the door open. That's a big problem. Air ride suspension, they start to settle down on the rumps, and now you're dealing in thousands of dollars to repair. This isn't a Honda or a Toyota, this is a Range Rover, so those parts are going to come at an extremely high price, not to mention a $220 to $250 shop rate to get that vehicle serviced. Look, even this, the fit and finish isn't that amazing there either. And of course, you do have a lot of nice detailing, black piano finishing, gorgeous interior, more nice detailing here, and look at the Range Rover detailing up top. Now, it's a gorgeous vehicle, but when you start approaching the price tag of well over $100,000, a lot of people have to start thinking twice about whether they should buy one of these vehicles. Electrical problems, transmissions that hang up, and then you have to get the vehicle towed up, and all kinds of electronic problems, including the HMI and the infotainment system, which you need a SIM card that seems to just jam up from time to time. These vehicles here, you could expect about 111 days on the lot. Now, that might give you bargaining power. If you see a vehicle like this, if you're actually interested in buying one of these, look on Car Gurus, do a search in your area for a vehicle, and you will find a vehicle like this. If it's been sitting out there for 2 to 3 months or beyond, then you know you've got more bargaining power than a vehicle that just came right off the truck. The Range Rover Velar, one of those that clearly nobody wants, and you can't give these away. And here's another one that just they can't give away, and it's a Jaguar. Now, I love Jaguar, I love the F-Type, I love the F-Pace, and I think a lot of the products are great, but unfortunately the brand isn't selling all that well, and not a lot of people are buying. As a matter of fact, sales have virtually almost disappeared, especially since they took that hiatus, they took that year off where they said they've got to regroup. Unfortunately, the CEO got punted, and that whole advertising campaign got the boots. The brand has been struggling, and Jaguar, sure, they built some great vehicles. I personally believe the F-Type, the F-Pace are relevant. They're fun, they're fast, and they're beautiful. But vehicles like this, on top of the fact that nobody's buying the brand right now, you can't give these vehicles away. You've got beautiful headlights, though, large wheels, all kinds of beautiful contours like Jaguar does with a lot of their vehicles. Look very, very stylish. And this back end does resemble the brand. Of course, it has that, you can just see the overall resemblance from the F-Type and the F-Pace, sort of have those big high hips, LED taillights, the Jaguar. And we're dealing with the I-Pace. That's right, the I-Pace is their all-electric vehicle. As you could pretty much see, you've got the plug-in port right there. But as beautiful as it is, nobody's buying them. Very few people are buying Jaguars. Sales are in the tank, but electric Jaguar, forget about it. And another vehicle that shows up high on my list, I would actually consider buying one of these, but they're extraordinarily expensive. And a big reason why a lot of people say, no, I'm not having it, I would never buy these, and wouldn't take it for $1 million, is because it's a sedan. Fewer and fewer people are buying cars these days. More people like SUVs, they just seem to be more practical. So less and less seem to be selling. Nobody's buying sedans, particularly in the luxury car segment. The only ones that are selling are Honda Accords and Toyota Camrys. But when you're looking at luxury car segment, the sales are down anyway. You've got a smaller group of people buying vehicles in the luxury car segment. But on top of it, now you throw sedans in the mix, it's sort of yesterday's news and less people are buying them. But at 132 days supply, even though this vehicle isn't terribly unreliable, it is very technologically advanced. It is in fact very expensive, and it's the S60 by Volvo. Means that with all this technology wrapped underneath the hood, it means this vehicle here is going to cost a lot of money, not just up front, but as well as you go along through the service shop. These vehicles cost extraordinarily high levels of cost of servicing. And if you want to keep the vehicle running for years, you're going to want to do that servicing, but that comes at a significant cost. So that's why the S60 at 132 days to sell these vehicles is no quick seller, and quite honestly, almost nobody's buying them. And with all of that said, you want another list of poor sellers right there, a whole different group of vehicles for different reasons. A lot of people are making different choices there too. Hope to see each and every one in the next one, everybody. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.